Intel has made quite the recovery with their Arc discrete GPUs, going from a shaky launch to having massive improvements in performance with every driver update. And with some recent statements on the Full Nerd podcast by Intel's Tom Peterson, a senior fellow on Intel's GPU team and one of the core pioneers of Arc graphics, we're led to believe that Intel can only go up from here. We've long criticized Intel on this channel for what a horrific launch Arc was, and how poorly they missed a timing window of GPU supply that might have actually propelled them to a higher market share than they have now. The launch was so poorly received, going from "is it even out yet" to "bruh, these drivers are horrible," that some leaks and speculation indicated Intel was having very high-level thoughts about just canning the project altogether. But as per Peterson himself, the Arc GPUs have actually met, if not exceeded, Intel's internal sales targets. This is excellent to hear, just from the sole fact that, objectively speaking, Intel has a monetary interest in being the third player in the GPU space, which is good because competition against AMD and Nvidia is always welcome. It also highlights that there is a viable market for these very budget value GPUs, as most people just want a PC that'll play games like CSGO, League of Legends, Rocket League, or other esports-esque titles. And to do that, you don't need to spend an arm and a leg on a PC. Moving on from sales, Peterson highlighted the improvements the driver and software team have made in the relatively short time since launch. We did a video covering the great progress Intel has made with their drivers, which you can check out here. But one other thing to note is that we can expect Intel to keep making these performance jumps with driver updates for a while, until they reach the maturity level of AMD or Nvidia's drivers. One other thing to note is Intel is actually on par with Nvidia and ahead of AMD when it comes to having day one drivers for new game launches. Moving on, let's talk about the nitty-gritty of hardware. Peterson talked about the second hardware revision of Arc, Battle Mage, which is expected out later this year. Battle Mage is going to have a ton of hardware fixes for the current flaws existing in Alchemist, and perhaps the greatest improvement will be more direct hardware support and acceleration for AI. The current Alchemist GPUs have support for hardware-accelerated ray tracing, which will also be improved in Battle Mage, but Battle Mage will feature greater support for AI features like AI-based upscaling. Like Nvidia has DLSS and AMD FSR, Intel's flavor of AI upscaling is ETSI-SS, and the performance and quality of which will only be improved with additional AI-specialized hardware. Peterson did also mention that Intel agrees with AMD and that they don't want to use AI for frame generation like Nvidia does with DLSS 3.0, noting that AI is better used elsewhere for other tests. What that means for where Intel and AMD are going, we can't be too sure. As for the future of Intel Arc graphics, it can really only go up from here. Intel has carved themselves out a nice little niche in the market with an audience who wants modern, dedicated graphics hardware, but is still casual enough to not want to spring for an AMD or Nvidia GPU. Thinking even more long-term, while I think Arc GPUs will always be present in the desktop GPU space, I think the real value add from Arc will actually be in the laptop space. The price difference between a laptop without discrete graphics and one with a dedicated GPU from Nvidia or AMD is immense. I personally would love a machine that has a discrete GPU so I can still play some of my favorite games like CSGO, but doesn't necessarily need to run the latest AAA titles on max settings, and I think Intel Arc fits this area really well. I want something better than integrated graphics, but not as hardcore as say a 4080. Intel already has a ton of margin by integrating with laptop vendors with their processors in them, and I can imagine these vendors would like the convenience and cost savings of just sticking with Intel for both CPU and GPU and offering a lower price for consumers. Let us know down in the comments where you think Intel fits in with the GPU market, and I'll see you in the next one.